Guys, I got bad news.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
Spiffy's is closed.
Oh, no.
I don't even know what it is.
Spiffy's is closed,
That's
guys.
just news to
Getting
me.
worse every
Sad.
time you say it.
This is direct evidence. The collapse is here. The country has
Spiffy's.
fallen.
You know what else is messed up? The dairy.
Defa-
So there's this Dairy Queen in Indiana I used to go to, and they don't have dilly bars there anymore.
What?
Oh my
And
God.
you're telling me,
Over.
you're telling me that
It's
the
all
West
over.
isn't collapsing.
This is Mad Max.
Check out the story from Timcast.com. Diner closes. Diner closes. Fined $400,000 for violating COVID-19 rules. Wait, what? Diner closes? I think they got a typo in the headline. Copy editor, guys. What are you doing? Timcast.com.
The heck?
A diner that was fined $400,000 for violating COVID has closed permanently. The Washington Eatery was once referred to as the flashpoint for COVID rebellion by local news outlets. They unfortunately they shut down. They said it was due to staffing shortages and food delivery problems, not the fines.
Huh.
So it wasn't the fines.
Interesting. Okay.
But
the fine. I'm sure the fines had to contribute something to it.
or they were just ignoring them.
Yeah.
Not paying
Well,
the
okay,
fines.
fair enough.
But I jokingly say, "Oh, Spiffy is close." It's a 50-year-old diner.
Wow.
In
that
DC.
sucks.
50
Yeah,
years.
that is
So
sad.
so look, this is just one example of all the businesses that we've seen destroyed because of what's been going on in the economy. And it's fascinating. If you look at civics, their polling, Democrats right now actually think the economy is good.
What? Wait,
No-
how could you genuinely think the economy is good right now?
I'm confused.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Let's
Wow.
see this article.
Now here we are not understanding human motivation.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
How could you
that's-
think this economy is good?
Seems like a human
Let me
thing.
see if I can pull this up.
Oh, shit.
And I don't think it's fair to say necessarily that they're like saying it's the best. Right now, 36% of people in general think that the economy is fairly good.
Huh.
But hold on. Let's do it by Democrat only.
Oh, my.
58% of Democrats think the economy is doing good right now. 20% say fairly bad.
Well, no,
9% unsure. 7% say very good.
Well, but because that's the kind of economy that they want. Businesses are shutting down. People aren't able to provide services to the public. They're not able to keep
people
their door open.
drive?
But a bunch of people who aren't working are getting money from the government.
look.
To them, that's a good economy.
Hold on. I think I have an answer to this. If you switch to Republican, 40% say very bad, 38% say fairly bad, and 17% say fairly good. Among independent voters, 33% say fairly bad, 29% say very bad, and 29% say fairly good. I'll tell you what this is. It's people who watch CNN.
Yeah.
You're a Democrat and you're sitting there watching CNN with drool pouring out of your mouth like, "Nah," and they're like, everything is great. The economy's recovered. And you're like,
That's insanity. It's insanity.
Meanwhile, Republicans are like, my 401k is not doing so well.
I'm buying gas.
I'm out
Look
of
at
work
that.
right now. Like,
Yeah.
I might be out of work, and other people I know might be out of work, but the economy's doing well because the media told me it is. And, we're getting checks from the government right now, and that can last forever. And we're going to keep being locked down because variant after variant's going to pop up, and they're never going to let us go back to our jobs until we get the 7th and 8th and 9th dose of the vaccine. But no, yeah, things are great. The economy's doing fine. It's on a rebound.
A direct, I think,
On the rebound.
it's the result of the way that the public school teaches kids zero about economics. I mean, I learned about money, dimes, and nickels in first grade, and I think that was the last they ever taught me about economics until college. I had to take an economics course.
We had banking in my school.
Oh,
We had like
cool.
minor stuff, but I didn't understand like compound interest. I didn't understand the way that works. If you look at the numbers and you know compound interest, you can see that it's not good.
We had in second grade, they opened up bank accounts for kids.
That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
We also had mock presidential elections.
That's great.
But I think that might have been a polling thing, like to see what the kids would say. And so I remember being a little kid and they had like one of those old dot matrix computers and they had everyone in a line and they were like, pick who you want to be president. And I was like, Ross Perot. No, I'm serious.
That's when Tim started being a contrarian.
But
Somebody's
they-
going to put that in a hit piece.
That
No,
was
for
awesome.
real. And I guess I vaguely remember this. I'm probably getting it wrong because I was probably like, I don't know how old I was, 6 or something,
Jeez.
or 7. And what they were trying to do was to see what kids would say, and it showed what their parents were thinking. And so, my parents, I think, voted for Bill Clinton, but for some reason I was like,
Yeah, I tried to get my dad to vote for Ross Perot. It was like, I don't know, he voted for Clinton.
I don't know.
Vote for
I didn't
Perot.
think
Vote for Perot. I couldn't
Got
vote.
those ears.
about it. But the economy's on fire,
Yes.
and we're watching this controlled collapse of everything. So we were just talking about this previously, but you combine this with abolition of police, defunding of police. You combine this with Joe Biden defying the Supreme Court and just threatening people with jail for not,
Well, this is a consequence of having a system where the people who make all of the decisions We'll still have firearms from their private security when they ban your guns. We'll still have private security when they defund the police. We'll still be getting their paychecks from their corporate donors when they shut the economy down and your business gets destroyed. They face absolutely no consequences for making decisions that ruin life for the average American.
I think we are in a simulation.
Oh.
Why is that?
Because they're like whoever's running it, they're like, increase the difficulty. Are they reacting? No. Increase the difficulty again. Did they start reacting? No. Okay, crank it up to 12. How many? 12. Oh, geez, they're still not doing anything. Like, it feels like they're just slowly turning up the knob on the pressure, and people are just like okay with it.
They're like, no, turn the difficulty up, but tell them the economy is doing really good, and see how many of them actually believe that.
Well, that's part of the difficulty. I mean, it's like propaganda, telling everyone's fine. But they're saying things like staff shortages, food shortages, gas shortages, and it's becoming impossible to run your business.
Dude, what a bungling of this to give people unemployment that they will lose if they take their job back. In a lot of countries, they would just, companies that had to let people go for COVID, the government would pay the people that they had let go because they were still working there. And then when they were able to go back, they would just go back to the job. They would keep getting paid now by the job again.
They're creating an addiction to government.
Yeah, now people, if they go back to work, they lose their government paycheck.
And
their government insurance. You know, it's unemployment insurance, which you get taxed on for some reason. It's an insurance payout.
You're getting the equivalent of $16 an hour not to work, and you're looking at all these jobs, and you're like, but even if I take it, I lose this.
Dude, and
I'm going to ride this out.
Those people have to pay taxes on that unemployment, and I don't know if they're even planning for that. I mean, how can you when you're living paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah.
You know what I find remarkable is that when we had Vosh on the show just 2 days ago, he was in favor. He was like, I'm in favor of UBI, and I'm like, have you not read the news, good sir? Like, with respect, I'm glad he came on and had a good conversation, but I disagree with him. Like, have you not read the news or watched what's going on because we're giving these people money, and you hear this propaganda, the anti-work on Reddit? It's like one of the, what's funny is like Reddit's got a lot of lazy people. I tell you this. Like,
Not Reddit.
no, not Reddit. They're like, we shouldn't have to work. It's like, okay, invent replicators, and I got no problem with that. It's like you can sit around and just say the tea Earl Grey hot, and then you're not going to work. But everything else requires work because of, I don't know, the second law of thermodynamics. But anyway, we're in UBI. This is it. I said this. I remember I was hanging out when I was on Joe Rogan. He asked me, like, what do you think about UBI? And I was like, I think people wouldn't want to work. And then you get these leftists saying, like, oh, that's not true. Actually, you know my favorite question is, like, Ian. I mean, no. I'm sorry, Seamus.
Yes.
You're not.
No.
How many people do you know play the
I want to
guitar?
answer this one.
How many what?
How many people do you know play the guitar?
Play the guitar? Oh man, that's a good question. I went to an art school, Tim, so you're looking at a disproportionate sample here. But probably, like, let's say I know 5 people who play guitar.
And how many of them are bad at guitar?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't ask my friends to play for me. I'm just like, I'm sure you're great. Like, I just don't even ask them.
How many do you think
no,
are like?
I think here's the thing: the only people I know who play guitar are people I know who play because, like, I've been to their shows and stuff, so they're decent, they're good.
So
but I'm sure I know plenty of people who are bad at guitar.
Most people know, like, everybody plays some kind of instrument to some degree. Not everybody, but like a lot of people. And so most people will be like, oh, I know a few people who play the guitar, and how many are bad? I know a few of them are pretty bad. Yeah. Do you think the people who are bad would stop working and try to become famous musicians?
Oh, I could see it happening. Yeah,
I know it for a fact.
Of them,
I know
especially
people.
when they're younger. Yeah,
I grew up in Chicago. I knew tons of people who had well-off parents who were like, I'm gonna make music, and I'm like, bro, you're not good at this.
No, you're not.
Like, you're not gonna be a celebrity doing this. And that's the thing about UBI. You give someone money and to not produce. So here's what it basically means. You're giving someone money, which is access to extract from the system.
Yes.
And then instead of putting anything meaningful back in, they make bad music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so this is interesting because you can take it a step further. A lot of people want to have, a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel. They want to find some way to make money with social media. And when you're starting, you can hit a point where, maybe you're able to make a couple $100s a month. That doesn't necessarily mean you're cut out for the industry. That doesn't mean this is going to be something that'll turn into a full-time career. But that UBI plus a couple $100s a month from whatever you're doing on social media could push you over the edge and actually be enough for you to live off of. So it gives you an unrealistic idea of what your prospects are. And social media is one example, but there are all sort of arenas where you might be able to make a little bit of money, and that combined with the stipend you're getting from the government could be enough to live off of, but that's not where your labor is most productively used by the majority of people giving to and receiving from the economy. So you're actually doing a net disservice to the country overall and to the economy overall. Exactly.
Right. So my view of this is like, okay, here's an option. easy access to grants for young people. You turn 18, you can now go to the local grant center, which is very easy to go to. Present your little pamphlet and be like, here's what I want to do, and then request a certain amount of money to engage in that project. Because one of the issues that I hear a lot from the UBI crowd is, think about all the talented people who are stuck working a crappy job because if they quit, they'd lose their apartment, they'd be homeless. And I'm like, that's true. There are a lot of young people of great talent. I know growing up people who are insanely good at skateboarding. And I was like, man, these guys got to go pro. Yeah. Sorry, they didn't have the sponsors. They didn't have the means to film, and they had to work. Otherwise, they'd lose their job or they'd lose their apartment. And I was like, if this guy was just given a little bit of money so he could skate, we'd have another great pro. So how about instead of the worst of both worlds, we do the best of both worlds? You got to work to pay your bills, and at a certain age, you can say like, here's my plan. I'm a young person, and then get a grant, and that's it. That's your chance.
It's complicated, though, because you have to ask the question, even if there are many talented people in a particular field who don't have an opportunity to try to enter it, you have to ask how many people with that particular talent can the economy support. So let's say everyone who's good at skateboarding is able to get this grant where they can become a professional skateboarder. I mean, realistically, how many professional skateboarders can our economy even support? I don't think
we're not offering them. We're not offering an infinite or indefinite amount of money. It's here's a grant to run your business, and they have to have a plan. They come to you with a plan saying, I would like a grant for this particular project.
For sure. I thought so. It sounded to me like the point that you were making was we'll tap into all sorts of talent we haven't gotten before, but my concern is we'll give a lot of money to people and they'll end up with a lot of debt, and they're not really going to end up contributing.
Why would they end up in debt?
Well, because they don't end up successfully taking a grant. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about $100,000. I'm talking about a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
So it's like they can take less. They can invest some money into something. Basically saying like, can we invest in young people instead of indebting young people and putting them in colleges that just grind them to dirt?
Yeah. Well, one of the weird things is I'm not entirely sure how I feel about a grant, but it is very strange that almost any young person can go get a loan to go off to college, even if the degree isn't going to pay off for them, and it's obvious based on the degree they're choosing. But if you go in with a really solid business plan at 18, the likelihood that you're going to get a loan is extremely low.
That's insane. That's totally backwards.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right.
And so part of the reason that we have the tuition crisis that we have and the student debt crisis is because, this is not just my personal opinion, I think this is something that's borne out by all of the most basic rules of economics, and if you need a citation, the National Bureau for Economic Research has said this is the case, but colleges respond to an increase in the availability of student loans by increasing tuition costs. Yep. I mean, so now we have absurdly expensive college costs because the government came in and said, hey, let's help people go to college. Well, it turns out all they did was make it more difficult for people to go. And I don't know if it was necessarily a plan on their part. I don't think it was. I just think they screw up whenever they try to help.
And then college is basically indentured servitude. It's here's the money for your opportunity, and then you got to pay it back, and then most people can't, and then they get mad and they demand communism, and then I got to pay the bill for it.
I think what's even more insidious is many of them can pay it back. I think even a majority, but the problem is the people who can pay it back. I mean, look, there is an economic hierarchy in terms of who is able to be accepted into college in the first place. So if you grew up in a rough neighborhood where you weren't able to get the kind of education that someone who went to a decent private school or a decent public school, as far as public schools go, in the suburbs went to, you're going to be less likely to get into school, right? So when we forgive student debt, oftentimes what it does is it redistributes wealth from working people who never had the opportunity to go to college and towards people who started out in the upper class and then went to college who are no longer being expected to pay off the debts, which they voluntarily incurred.
Right, so this is what I actually responded to a leftist with this, and I was on Twitter. I thought I was going to get just like all these leftists screaming at me because they're like, Kim Paul. Somebody said something like, they said, it was a tweet about, when you say we shouldn't pay back someone's, forgive student debt because you had to pay it off, you're basically saying they should suffer because you did.
No.
And my response was, I just don't think it's right to make working class people pay off the debts of the highest income earners in the country.
Exactly.
And people actually like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
People with college degrees earn higher salaries on average than people without them. Why should working class people pay off the debts of the highest income earners? We are funneling money to the top tier? No way, dude. Do the inverse. How about we make the college students with their high incomes pay their fair share? Pay your fair share.
Well, I mean, often those people end up going into the 1% and paying an exorbitant amount in taxes, but
Well, the 1% is still
or top
1% of
10%.
people.
Well, again, even top 10%.
Listen.
I mean, the higher
How about-
income earners pay the majority
How
of taxes.
about these people who took out student loans pay their fair share?
Yes.
They got free money.
Yeah.
And now they want
back.
working poor people,
Yeah.
the proletariat, to pay their bills
No,
off?
it's actually true.
Pay your fair share, college debt holders.
You should define
It's
fair.
actually true.
Bernie Sanders,
I
the
think
buzzword
fair is-
fair
yes,
share
I'll
was
tell
a
you
Bernie
what fair
Sanders
share
buzzword.
is. Fair share is, and to be fair, I'm not talking about exorbitant interest rates that
Yeah,
compound. They
I
can't
agree.
pay off.
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying
think that's crazy.
I think
we're
the
not
interest is
forgiving-
unfair.
Yes, I agree. We're
Compound, 'cause they weren't
My
talking about what
stance
it
has
is.
always been we can stop the interest rates and say
Yes.
pay back your remaining principal.
Yeah.
That's your fair share. But what they're saying right now is Joe Biden could snap his fingers and erase all federal debt for college students. Why doesn't he do it? Because that would be you not paying your fair share, diluting the economy, and it would be an invisible tax on the working class.
Yeah.
So you got free money, you got to spend it, you pay your fair share. Now, hold on. I agree with you. The interest rates are insane, wrong, and
Yeah,
broken.
100%.
That we get rid of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's insane that you could charge interest on a loan that's guaranteed. I understand some small amount to hedge against inflation, but the idea
Right.
of people.
Like
Yeah,
1% over the lifetime of it
Yeah.
or something.
Or something adequate to offset the value that will be lost through inflation, but not so much that you're able to profit off it. The idea of like profiting off of a guaranteed
Or even
loan to
just
me is
like
insane.
if you take out 10 grand, you owe an extra $100. Like, look, if we're trying to invest in young people to be better able and better capable, then I think we can give out straight loans with inflationary interest. But at a certain point, you should be able to pay back just the principal. The interest rates are insane. They compound. It gets higher. I hear too many stories from people who are like, I took out $40,000 and now I owe 80. And it's like,
That's completely insane.
not right,
That's
yeah.
completely insane.
it shouldn't. I think if you're out of work, it should just stop. Like, I don't know, man. The system's broken, and I'll tell you this: before we even get into any of that stuff, I'm like, we need to. I'm totally. You know what? I'll tell you this. Here's my compromise. I will personally accept a greater amount of debt to be erased outside of interest if it also means we either seize the endowments from the universities,
Yes.
or, and I mean that half jokingly, or we outright end the college loan debt pipeline. That whole thing has to stop.
Well, I mean, no, they absolutely have to stop federally guaranteeing student loans. That's the only way it comes back. Well, let me actually be clear. There's going to be a bubble at some point, right? The bubble's going to pop at some point, I should say. We're already in a bubble. This can't sustain itself forever. But it's just clear that eventually they're going to have to stop federally subsidizing these loans, and it's certainly making the problem worse that they do subsidize them, so they have to stop.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.